Hey everyone, it's Natalie. We'd love to feature your voice on our next episode. So share with us, what are you still thinking about after you listen to Bethany's story? Send us a message through Facebook or Instagram. We look forward to hearing from you very soon. And now, here's your episode. This is Nathalie Lebrun.
And I'm Judy Rich. Together, we welcome you to Lead Speak, school-based SLP podcast.
Whether you're an SLP currently navigating leadership waters, an SLP who is eager to shape the future of speech-language pathology in schools, or a student who's preparing to join our profession, we welcome you all to this conversation. Hey Judy, how's it going?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited for our fourth episode today.
Yeah, and our third guest. Do you want me to get it started and introduce her?
Go for it.
Okay. It is my pleasure to introduce Bethany Whidden, who currently serves as the Director of Student Services for Miami County Educational Service Center in Troy, Ohio. Bethany has a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology and a master's in speech-language pathology from The Ohio State University. Did I say that right, Bethany? The Ohio State University?
That's the only way to say it, Judy. You said it absolutely right.
Okay. All right. Whew, passed that test. She completed her clinical fellow year at Nationwide Children's Hospital in 2009, worked as an SLP for the Miami County Board of Developmental Disabilities and the Miami County Educational Service Center, and then in 2017 started her formal leadership journey as a related services supervisor for the Miami County Educational Service Center, and in August 2023 was named Director of Student Services. Bethany engages in interprofessional practice and leadership. She leads across the disciplines, including intervention specialists, SLPs, school psychologists, paraprofessionals, and school social workers. So I'm guessing, Bethany, that you are putting your bachelor's degree in psychology to good work. Bethany is a member of the Ohio SLP AUD Supervisory Network. In 2019 and 2020, served as liaison chair and board member for the Ohio School Speech Pathology and Educational Audiology Coalition, that is OSPEAK. She served as a legislative representative for the Ohio Speech and Hearing Governmental Affairs Coalition and currently is president-elect of OSPEAK. Bethany is a frequent presenter at the Fall OSPEAK Conference, an amazing conference, by the way, with presentations on hot topics in schools, creating a culture of communication in the classroom, advancing school-based practice, and my favorite, in October 2023, a presentation titled Taken Out of Context, Ignore the IEP. Welcome, Bethany. We're happy to have you with us today. So I've shared a skeleton outline of your leadership journey with things from your Vita, but tell us more about you and tell us about your leadership journey.
Well, thank you both for having me here. I'm so excited to have this opportunity to speak with you and to speak to other SLPs who are leading in the field or are looking for leadership opportunities. When it comes to my leadership journey, looking back, it really began in graduate school. In my second year, I was given the opportunity to apply for a graduate assistantship through the LEND program, which is Leadership Education in Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. It's a program typically operating as part of a University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities that trains graduate students as part of an interdisciplinary team. So I was really excited about the possibility of doing that. Prior to going to graduate school, I had served as a service coordinator for the Help Me Grow program in Ohio, which is our early intervention program. And that was my first taste of interdisciplinary work, where a team of professionals from different disciplines got together to serve families. And it was something that I was really excited about and loved doing, and then decided to pursue my graduate training in speech-language pathology. So when a further opportunity to get involved as part of an interdisciplinary team arose, I really wanted to grab that if I could. So I did apply for the assistantship and was fortunate enough to be chosen to represent the field of speech language pathology in my LEND class at Ohio State, at the Ohio State University. Um, and that program gave me some unique opportunities to participate in collaborative decision making with other disciplines, as well as clinical experiences with families of children with developmental disabilities. So I had some really cool opportunities to serve with other professionals serving families of kids with developmental disabilities. And that really, it really gave me an opportunity to see what kind of difference a team could make in the lives of children. And that was really exciting and a really big part of helping me develop long-term goals, career-wise, but also long-term leadership goals. So as you mentioned, Judy, I completed my CFY at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and then I decided to pursue a school-based SLP career. So I moved back to my hometown here in Troy, Ohio, and started working for the Miami County Educational Service Center in 2009. And I was a school-based SLP for 8 years. Loved that position. I got the great opportunity to serve alongside an amazing team of other speech language pathologists. So that is really what I think kept me in the field and excited about being in the field. It's hard work. What we do as school-based SLPs is hard work. And I have found that the relationships I've developed with my colleagues has been critical for my development as a therapist, as a thinker, as a problem solver, and then ultimately as a leader. So in 2017, an opportunity came open in our department for the supervisor of the SLP department. And I immediately reached out to our superintendent and said, hey, I'd like to be considered for that role. I had been a part of our team for 8 years, loved my colleagues, loved what we were doing as a team, and wanted to have the opportunity to lead that group of professionals. So I did get that promotion and I became the SLP supervisor. At that time, it was about 18 SLPs, I think, and it was a challenging role to take on, being promoted from within. So that is a really unique challenge because I had to become the leader of people who had been my colleagues for quite a long time, and people who had more experience than me in both within the educational service center and within the field itself. So I was intimidated. I was excited, but nervous about how I was going to lead this group of people, even though it was an opportunity that I had sought out. Um, it was scary. And for the first few years, I really had to grow and build my confidence in a way that I hadn't had to do before, because being the leader is something that I consider quite a responsibility. And then ultimately had to lead through COVID, which was a whole other experience. So I took a lot of opportunities to pursue professional development. I also received my professional administrative specialist license in Ohio. That's an alternative pathway to becoming an administrator. Since I didn't have a principal's license, that was what I had to pursue in order to serve as an administrator in the state. So that required a few extra graduate school classes, which is funny looking back, because after 2 years of graduate school in speech language pathology, I was certain I would never go back to grad school, but I did. So those courses were helpful, but ultimately what really grew me as a leader was watching the other leaders around me. I have an amazing leadership team here at the Miami County ESC. I'm really fortunate to be blessed with colleagues that challenge me and teach me and walk alongside me through difficult situations. And I mentioned COVID, but particularly during that time in my leadership experience, we were all not sure what to do, you know? And so that was a real growth experience in a really positive way looking back, because the creativity that came out of that, the problem solving, the working together, the collaboration, it was an amazing thing to watch the professionals all through education, from administrators to related service providers and teachers and intervention specialists and paraprofessionals. Everyone was banding together to solve the problem that was remote learning for kids with disabilities. And I was very lucky to be able to be a part of that. So I served as SLP supervisor for a few years before ultimately becoming related service supervisor and taking on disciplines that were outside of my area of expertise. And that too was a real challenge, because it's one thing leading those folks who work in an area that you really understand very well because you've done it, you've been in the trenches, you know what they're talking about when they come to you. And then taking on school psychologists and school social workers, and now serving as director of student services, I oversee our intervention specialists and paraprofessionals and special education supervisors. And I've had to learn a lot about leadership, because ultimately leadership isn't just about knowing intimately the work that's being done, although that's very important. It's about learning how to lead people who have jobs that you haven't done yourself. And I think that's been an important part of my growth as a leader over the last year in particular. So it's been a really exciting year. It's been a huge undertaking and overwhelming at times. The Director of Student Services role here at the Miami County ESC is a new one this year. So I actually have been very fortunate to be given a lot of leeway in what that looks like in the creation of the role. But it also means I didn't have an outline for it. You know, I've been building it as I go. And that has been intimidating, but so rewarding. And again, I have just the most amazing leadership team here that has really supported me. And I'm learning new things daily about how to be an effective leader outside of the world of speech language pathology. So really, career-wise, that's been my path. But one of the things that has influenced my journey to leadership is my involvement in the Ohio School Speech Pathology and Educational Audiology Coalition, and that's what we refer to as OSPEAK. So early in my supervisory career, I think it was the fall of 2017, I attended our fall OSPEAK conference, and I agree, Judy, it's an amazing conference. And I went to a session led by the Ohio SLP and AUD Supervisory Network, which I had never heard of before. And as a new supervisor, I was looking for guidance. That's not really something we get a lot of training on in graduate school, is how to be a leader in the field, how to grow other professionals. I had supervised students, graduate students, and clinical fellows, and some of that was just winging it. You know, you're just learning as you go. But I really wanted to do a good job and to do well by our team. So I was looking for ways to grow my skill set. And I went up to the presenters at the end of that session and I said, "What is this network? How do I get involved?" And they immediately embraced me as a new supervisor and said, "This is what it is." And it's really an informal group of SLP and AUD supervisors across the state of Ohio that come together to collaborate and network to benefit our field and the students that we serve. It's actually a really unique organization, I think, within our state. And I'm really, really blessed to be a part of it, because what happened as a result of that was I developed a network of other people doing my job who really took me under their wing and mentored me and continue to mentor me. I started working on special projects with these other leaders, and through my connections with them, I met a real mentor, a woman who became a real mentor to me. Her name is Barb Conrad, and she has done a ton in the field of speech language pathology, and I've been blessed to learn from her. She's played a critical role in my career. She's recommended me for opportunities, including serving as the legislative representative to the Ohio Speech and Hearing Governmental Affairs Coalition. And throughout all of these last 7 years that I've been in supervision, I've tried to take, and I hope I have taken every opportunity to take the initiative to introduce myself to other leaders. I introduced myself early on to the president of OSPEAK at the fall conference, and through that introduction became a member of the board as a committee chair. And now I'm currently serving as president-elect, and next year will serve as president. the opportunities that I've had haven't been by accident. So I think one of the things that I've really learned is just taking the initiative to introduce yourself to somebody can open up doors that you wouldn't believe. And that has been such a blessing to me in my career. These other leaders who have wanted me to succeed and have really helped me along the way and taught me so much about how to be a leader in our field. I'm very, very blessed to have met all of these amazing people along the way.
I love hearing about the fact that, like, to you, your opportunities are just not happen by random chance. Like, it sounds like you're accessing networks, you're developing your own networks to just get to know people and for people to get to know you. And so when there are interesting and cool opportunities, they think about you, right? And say, like, you know what, Bethany might be really well suited for this gig that we have coming up, right? That's so awesome. I definitely want to ask you a question about trust. So, one of our listeners sent me a voice memo from one of our earlier episodes, and she had a question about what happens when you're working on a multidisciplinary team and trust is broken. How do you address that?
Hi, this is Jenna, a school based SLP out of Houston, Texas. I loved the episode with Charlotte. I really loved when she was talking about being dead right. I think that's such a useful phrase and perspective to have when we're working on a team. One thing I would love to hear more about is she was talking about how it's so critical to have trust on a team and to be trustworthy. And I would love to hear more about what happens when trust is broken. What happens when you have to rebuild trust, and what does that look like?
One of the things that I think is incredibly critical to a leader is to have credibility. And for me, that comes by being honest. And that seems like such a simple answer, doesn't it? But it can be difficult to sit in a meeting or to be a part of a multidisciplinary team and say, I don't know, or I'm not sure when you're faced with a difficult question. But I personally feel that's one way that you can build credibility and trust with those around you is simply by stating, I don't have that answer.
Sure. I think that you're right that the leader does set the tone and that it does take time and multiple opportunities to regain trust in order to rebuild that trust. Um, I also think that the leader can shape the conversations so that the team, when they're rebuilding trust, they're doing their main work. And if that happens to be working with a student or working with a family, stay focused on the issues that each professional brings to solving that problem. And when a team can solve problems together, and be creative in their problem solving to do good things for children and families, that smooths the tension a little bit and multiple opportunities to do that. So I think, Bethany, I'm just reframing what you've already said. The leader needs to be honest, be intentional about rebuilding it, be calm, don't contribute to drama, and work on the work so that you're not focused on the fractured or hurtful things that have gone on about the teaming behaviors, but you're practicing your teaming together as you work on your work. What do you think, Nat? Really good question from our listener.
How do you rebuild that trust when you have people with very different trainings and maybe different priorities and responsibilities coming together towards a common goal? I absolutely agree that, for lack of better terms, honesty is the best policy. So, um, hoping that in good times, the team has built a atmosphere of trust, whether it's bringing each other coffee in the morning, or finding an opportunity to step off campus for lunch or whatever, in order to build a strong foundation in good times, because rough times will come. So that when rough times do come and maybe something happens where trust is broken, you have a better foundation to work from, and you can remember the other projects that you've worked on where things have gone smoothly. There has been trust and collaboration. So I think without that, I'm not quite sure how you move forward. And then the other part too is, if you're on a campus and you've reached an impasse with your relationship with your colleagues, definitely tapping into bringing in somebody like a third party or an ombudsman in order to kind of talk through those issues and kind of come back to what you were saying, come back to the task at hand, reconsider, refocus to the goal, and then maybe set up some new expectations and new parameters on how to move forward.
I think that's so important. One of the things I try to remember at all times, especially when things get heated for any number of reasons, is why are we here? And ultimately, we're here to provide services to students. And I think if we can keep that at the forefront of the work that we're doing, even when there's been a breach of trust among team members, if we can all come back and remind ourselves that this is about this student or these students or the work that we're doing that is so critical to serving these kids, that ultimately we can come back together as a team, even if it takes time to rebuild that collaborative atmosphere.
So you've talked about honesty, you've talked about sort of a student-centered focus, purpose-driven, why are we here, what's our why? But are there 2 or 3 other leadership attitudes that are important to you?
I have to tell you, one of the biggest things that I think is critical to good leadership is humility. You have to be able to accept when you are wrong. There is one thing that I am absolutely sure of, and it is that I do not know everything. And I am reminded of that on an almost daily basis. And I think it's really important to be able to laugh at my mistakes when it's appropriate to laugh at them, and to own them to my team. I want them to know that I will acknowledge when I make a mistake, and I will apologize for it when necessary, and that I will work to rectify it. That in and of itself builds trust on your team, doesn't it? When you're willing to say, "Hey, I messed up and I made a decision that didn't work out for us. So let's talk about how we move forward from here." And I also want to model for my team that it's okay to not have all the answers. I think that's an important part of leadership. It's not just pretending that I know everything. So I want them to see me model that for them. I also think that a really important attitude to have in leadership is one of problem solving. So I don't know if problem solving itself is an attitude, but it's certainly an approach. And I can't think of anything more important in leadership and education right now than bringing an attitude of problem solving. We, in special education in particular, are experiencing a shortage of everyone, aren't we? So we have a shortage of related service providers, intervention specialists, paraprofessionals, general education teachers, administrators. It's intimidating to face that. But it's my responsibility as a leader in education to develop solutions and not sit in fear of the crisis. So I think being able to, again, model that attitude for my team is very important. And then the last one, and it seems a little trite even to say it, but it's critical for the atmosphere on a team, is positivity. And when I think of positivity, I don't think it means ignoring what's going on around you. It doesn't mean pretending that something negative isn't happening or that you're sugarcoating difficult situations. What it does mean is that while you can acknowledge the fires, you don't sit in them and burn. I have a colleague who says, "We can visit the problem, but we're not going to pack a suitcase and live there." And I love that. And I use that all the time now, even if I'm just having to reframe something for myself. I am not going to live here. I can visit it, but I'm not here to stay.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful visual. I just see it now, right? Beginning of school year meeting, you bring your suitcases to the first meeting with your staff. And you're like, you guys, we're not moving in with our problems. Like, we're going to leave our problems. We're going to address it. We're going to reframe them, and we're going to move on. And the other way that you talked about the you acknowledge the problem, but you don't burn in them. I just think that's so cool. That could be a sticker or a T-shirt or something. So there's a business idea for you when you have some downtime. So you talked to us a little bit about already, kind of like your experiences leading through COVID. I 100% relate to that experience in my previous role. That was a doozy for sure. And you've talked about some of the real challenges happening throughout Ohio. I can second that here in Texas, really across the United States, when it comes to bringing the resources that our students need in order for them to achieve in our classrooms. Um, for you, what is the hardest thing about being a leader?
Hmm. The hardest thing about being a leader, gosh, I think originally, early on in my career, what I found to be the hardest thing about being a leader was that oftentimes my team would bring me the problems that I had also faced as an SLP, whether it be workload, caseload, or working conditions. I don't have a space to work in. And it was all of the things that had really caused me a lot of angst in my own position as an SLP. And then I was getting it from 18 people. So I was taking on the burdens of 18 people instead of just, you know, my own stress and anxiety from my position. And that was very difficult for me, particularly in the first year. I wanted to be able to fix everybody's problems. I wanted to be able to find ways to unburden them so that they would not have to face the same things that I did, early in my career as I was coming up. And I couldn't, you know, I was in a leadership role, but that didn't mean that I had infinite power to change all of the things that were difficult in our jobs. And that was very difficult for me at first to wrap my brain around, that even though I was in a position with a little more authority, I wasn't able to solve everybody's problems. And I think that is one of the things that is most challenging to me about leadership. I would like I would like to fix things. I can't always. And so one of the things that I'm sure my team gets tired of hearing me say, but that I do say a lot, is I might not be able to come up with a solution, but together we can determine what our best next step is. And I think about that a lot. I might not be able to resolve this today. I might not be able to resolve this in a year, but I can help you come up with the best next step. And so but that took me a while to learn. Um, my first few years in leadership were very stressful because I hadn't figured out how to deal with the fact that I couldn't solve everything for everybody. So I'm a little better about that now, but it's still one of those things that, when people come to you with a problem, you want to be able to fix it and you can't always. So I think that's one of the things that can be most difficult about leadership. And remembering too that a lot of people are looking to you. So when you have a bad day or when you have, a negative attitude, a lot of people see that and they take cues from you. And being at the center of attention sometimes is challenging, to remember that a lot of people are looking to you and you need to keep it together and set the tone. That could be hard.
I really like that thought, Bethany, about maybe we can't solve this all right now, but we can figure out a best next step. Maybe another T-shirt, Natalie. I'm not sure. Um, but so important to feel a little bit of control when issues or problems come up that are really out of the span of control, because it does model in terms of leadership is that we get to control ourselves And we can together think of a next step, either an attitude buster or a stress buster or an actual ask that will improve the situation. So I'm going to be thinking about that a lot, Bethany, in terms of the best next step. Let's see, what do I want you to talk about next? One of the good things about working in a school system is that there are definite seasons of the school year. There are the semesters in a school year. There's the beginning of school. There's the end of school. There's the state assessment season when everybody gets tense. There's um, in terms of being in a leadership role, there's the budget planning season, which you may be in right now. There's the hiring season. There's the staff appraisal season. So there's all these management things that you can calendar if that's the way you work. But my question is really, how do you approach planning in the macro in order to help you get through all of these things that you have to get done?
Well, that has come with experience. uh, so I am a details person, and I can get lost in the details if I'm not really careful. And I like the way you put that, Judy, talking about how do I approach things with a macro lens when I'm actually kind of a micro person. Um, and that has been a real learning curve for me. So it's something that's evolved over time as I've gained more experience. So you're right. We are heavily into planning for next school year right now. We are looking at staffing. We're looking at our needs for professional development. Um, we are looking at budgeting for next year. All of those things are really interrelated when it comes to management in an educational system. Um, so what I've learned is, because I'm a details person, but in my role, I need to be able to see the whole picture. I need to focus on what the most important things are in the next phase of our year. So in the upcoming future, while it's important to think about next year as a whole, I have to think right now in the spring about the fall versus thinking about next spring, this spring, which was something that took me some time. Um, when it comes to budgeting, it's very important to me to be both fiscally responsible and innovative. And those two things don't always intermingle super well. Um, but I have been able to creatively come up with ways to keep our budget realistic, but also making sure that we stay relevant with compensation and professional development for our staff. I am very fortunate to have a wonderful treasurer and a great superintendent who are very supportive of initiatives that I want to push through. But the key is they want me to have evidence to support my ideas. So that's part of my planning is, okay, here is something that I want to see big picture for next school year. What are the steps that I need to take right now so that I have the evidence to present to my superintendent, to my treasurer, to say, these are the things that we need to do this spring to make next year successful. Um, Staffing itself has been a large undertaking in this era of special education. I have to laugh when I think of my first year as an SLP supervisor and I was beginning to staff for the next school year. I had office mates at the time, and I'm sure that they would tell you I spent hours doing what appeared to be just staring at my desk. But I wasn't just staring at my desk. I had note cards with every SLP assignment for 18 SLPs. And I think at that time we had over 50 assignments, 2 days here, half day there. And I had written each one on different note cards, and it was a giant puzzle. And I would just move these note cards around. But I'm certain that to others, it looked like I just was sitting there staring at my desk. That task was not dissimilar from creating a therapy schedule at the beginning of the school year. When you're trying to put all the pieces together and the teacher has said, oh, just take them anytime. But then it turns out there's actually one time that you can take them, and you're trying to rearrange everything to fit everybody's schedule. That's kind of how that process went when I first started. But I've learned that if I keep in mind all year what my needs are or what I anticipate they might be for the next for the spring, when I'm going to have to actually start planning my staffing, then I can prevent a lot of that headache of the puzzle and the rearranging of the puzzle. So I think the key is planning for the future, but not too far in advance, and staying on top of it all year. I'm a pretty organized person, which is helpful, and so I keep a lot of lists. Um, and of course, when you've been in a role for 6 or 7 years, things come a little more naturally to you than they did in year one. So that's something that I've had to learn over time. I think you mentioned professional development, Judy, but professional development is a huge passion of mine. I often say that not needing CEUs is not the same thing as not needing professional development. So I like to start planning professional development for next year right now. I'm thinking about what are the needs of my team, what have the special education supervisors brought to me that they've identified as needs, what have the related service related service leads brought to me that are important for our related services professionals. And we start putting our heads together now to think about what we want to do next fall. So it's kind of a balance of planning ahead and living in the present. It's, I think that's an important part of managing the role.
I'm guessing that being in your role as a director of student services, that you can also plan some awesome interprofessional or teaming professional learning opportunities where folks who need to be on a multidisciplinary team are sitting shoulder to shoulder, hearing the same training. And in other school districts, there's a lot of silo training and not that opportunity. So you're in a pretty cool place, Bethany, in terms of being able to work your passion for professional learning as well as promote that interprofessional practice. Pretty fun.
Absolutely. And that's something that I want to continue to refine in the next few years as I get more confident and more experience in this role. I think it's critical that our teams are hearing the same message. And I think we have such a unique opportunity in our organization as an educational service center. We employ OTs and SLPs and intervention specialists and paraprofessionals, and we can bring our teams together so that they can build collaborative relationships, which is what I think is critical to meeting student needs, but also then hearing the same professional development. And I think meaningful professional development is so important to all of our staff members. And sometimes the most important professional development just comes from collaborating with your peers. It doesn't have to be attending a workshop or going to a conference for 2 days. It can be having time to collaborate with your network. And that, you're right, Judy, I have a unique position that I can put some of those things together given the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Bethany, for your insights across all these different questions about leadership and your journey to where you are today. We need to put you through the last 4 quick fire questions that we've been putting everybody else through. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. So tell us, what are your 3 forever favorite songs?
So this is a tough one because music is really important to me, and I feel like it can be the soundtrack to your life. So I've really been thinking about this and had to narrow it down. So I did come up with 3. The first one is just a hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul." I love that song. It's really meaningful and can bring me into a joyful place no matter what's going on. The second one is "Better Life" by Keith Urban. And the last one is "Cover Me Up" by Jason Isbell. All songs that are really important for different reasons in my life, but really meaningful across the board.
Lovely. That's awesome. Tell us, what's on your nightstand right now?
First thing, always chapstick. I have chapsticks for everywhere, and there is a nightstand chapstick, so that's critical. It's there. I also have a sound machine / alarm clock, which is meant to help me sleep better at night and then wake me up in the morning. Verdict's still out on how well that works. And then finally, I have my Kindle on my nightstand as well.
What are you reading on your Kindle right now? There's so many great books.
That is a great question. I am currently reading American Dirt. I can't think of the author's name, but it is a great novel. I just finished A Prayer for Owen Meany and picked up American Dirt last week. So highly recommend both novels. And it's always good to be reading things outside of the world of speech pathology as well.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm reading. So I just got the book, A Very Punchable Face.
Oh.
And it's one of the SNL Saturday Night Live actors whose name I would have to Google right now because I didn't think about this. But he was a kid that didn't speak until he was 4. So I guess it's kind of speechy. I didn't pick it up for that reason. But he talks about his journey in life and how he became a super famous actor and how he's from New Jersey. And it's a really funny book because he's a comedian. So it's very punny and that kind of thing. So it's a good book.
That's great. I'm intrigued by that. I might have to pick that one up.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, next one. Who brings you joy?
It's been really fun to have a relationship with my child who's now an adult. Watching him become the person that he is has been just the absolute joy of my life. So that's an easy one to answer. Also, I have to throw in there my nieces and nephew, Fiona, Alex, and TJ, and the rest of my family. And then I would be remiss if I did not mention the Ohio State Buckeyes football team.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Last question. What is leadership to you in one word?
In one word, action. And I'm going to leave it right there because I think it speaks for itself.
I love it. It's perfect. I love it so much. Awesome.
Wow, thanks, Bethany, for being our guest. So much of what you said resonated with the things that are important to me in SLP leadership, like interdisciplinary teaming and interprofessional practice. I heard you talk about studying leadership and especially learning from leaders around you, networking and reaching out, introducing yourself, connecting with people who are already in leadership positions. I heard you talk about your passion for professional development and appreciation for those who have mentored you. And by the way, I too am a big fan of Barb Conrad. And I'll be thinking about your leadership attitudes, humility, honesty, problem solving, and positivity. And finally, that t-shirt that Nat will make for us. We can visit the problem, but we're not going to live there. So again, thanks, Bethany. You've given us so much to think about.
Next time on Lead Speak, we will have Cherry Wright, an SLP with over 33 years of experience as a speech-language pathologist serving in public education. She has served in so many different roles, including supervisors of SLPs, principal of a school for students with severe disabilities, elementary principal, and director of special education. She even served as assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction for 11 years. Catch us again very soon. Until then, take care.